Hey guys, welcome back to the Big Intentions podcast. I'm your host, Iralyn. So excited to be back in my routine, back from my trip from Labor Day weekend. So we're just gonna get right into all the things. So just a couple of housekeeping things. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe. Subscribing really helps the channel. You can push the bell notification to stay notified of any new videos that I post on my YouTube. And then if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. That helps get the podcast out into other people's ears. So, I think that's all the housekeeping. So we can just jump right into the first segment, which is living out loud. So, just kind of do like a little life recap with you guys since it was Labor Day weekend. This past weekend, it was literally so nice to unplug, to not worry about anything, literally, and just to be like, chilling. So I went with my boyfriend for his birthday. We went to Denver, Colorado. It was both of our first times there. It was originally supposed to be a surprise birthday trip. Ended up, he figured out where we were going. So the itinerary there was a surprise to him. So the first night we went, and basically like checked into the hotel, kind of walked around, did a couple things. I think we got pizza, then we kind of chilled the hotel, got ready for dinner, and this was like his big birthday night dinner, Saturday night. So we went to this restaurant called Garden Grace. If you're ever in Denver, you have to go. He said that was his favorite thing that we did the whole weekend. And they also have one in Houston. So I'm like, road trip to Houston, because literally, so yeah, it's a steakhouse, like modern steakhouse. Everything's really good. But their cookies, oh my gosh, like unreal, unlike anything I've ever had. They're like little scoops. I don't know how they keep them in the scoop form. It's just like the perfect cookie. So, anyways, you guys, if you're going to Denver, you have to go there. So that was Saturday. Sunday we went to a Rockies baseball game. There were some rain delays, which that was fine. Got the glizzy. Really just did it up and enjoyed our experience there. I think we had brunch that day too. Yeah, Rockies game. And then that night we had a dinner at a Mediterranean like tapas place, and it was called L5. And that was in like a fun little area. It was kind of like across, I guess it's the river there. And there were some like little bars and ice cream and stuff like that. So that was super fun. And then Monday we went to Red Rocks and we saw Gregory Alvin Isaacov. I think that's how you say his name. Anyways, Red Rocks was incredible, like such a crazy venue. I was obsessed. So that was a lot of fun. And then, yeah, what else did we do Monday? I feel like, oh, we went on a hike. So that was like in the evening. During the day, we went on a hike and to Mount Galbraith, and it was like 4 mile hike, pretty doable. We didn't see any rattlesnakes, which apparently they were on the trail that day. But I think, in overall, Denver was cool. I was like trying to gauge, like, ooh, would I live here? But I don't really know that I would. I think they might be a little too active for me, or maybe it's not the right kind of active for me, because I'm more of a, when I say active, like I just want to be outside, doesn't necessarily mean I want to be hiking 14ers. So, not really sure where, like, I don't know if I would live in Denver, but it was really cool. Where we were staying was really nice. We stayed in the dairy block and there was a lot to do over there. It's really close to Coors Field. So if you haven't been to Denver, recommend the city. It was a good trip. There's lots of different things to do there. So I would recommend it. And if you need any recs, hit me up. I have some good recs for food, places to stay, that kind of thing. So that's kind of like my weekend recap. And that's about it. So now just kind of like getting back into the swing of things, back into routine. And I'm reading The Fourth Wing, which is like a fantasy book, which I wouldn't think is my vibe, but I'm actually really enjoying it. And I'm like 100 and some pages in. It's like a 600-page book. So I'm like buckled in for this, but it's a lot, but I'm enjoying it. So that's my like current read. And that's really the only thing I've been doing is reading. I just don't know where my time is going. I feel like I'm so much busier right now than I've literally I don't even know. And I hate being like I'm so busy cuz like that's so annoying, but I really don't watch TV. I have not been keeping up with vlogs, not even podcasts. Literally all I've been doing is reading. So, I mean that's fine. That's fun. Um um Also, to kind of like backtrack on the whole Colorado thing, I did vlog it, so I'll be uploading that soon. I got to edit that video and get it out for you guys. But anyways, yes. So The Fourth Wing, I'm reading it. It's really good so far. And I don't know what's going to be next. I know her other book, which is like the second part of the series, is coming out in November. So many things are happening in November. The Hunger Games movie, I'm just like so excited. I feel like November is going to be a really good month. I mean, I know we're only in September right now, and October is also a great month. November, super exciting. And then it's December, it's the holidays. So, really, I can't believe the year's like flying by. So, that's kind of like my living out loud recap. Also, I'm drinking this Spindrift lemon flavor, which I didn't know about Spindrift before a couple weeks ago. I'm obsessed. The lemon one, like I tried this one and I was like, I'm not trying any other flavors, which, I need to expand my palate, but this lemon one is so good. So I'll definitely be trying more flavors though. I'll let you guys know what I like the best. But that's kind of all I have for living out loud. So we'll move into the next segment, which is intentional living. And my intention for this week is noticing my feelings and my natural reactions to things and like noticing that and reflecting on it before I actually react and just like kind of taking account like, okay, yeah, I feel this way, but I don't need to immediately react in that way. I can reflect on it and be like, is this really how you feel, and like dwell on things more and just not be so reactive. And I feel like I've said this as my intention before, but like I really want to focus on this and make it a priority to like not fix, but yeah, I guess fix, like just not being so reactive. So, like deep breaths and like really like writing down, I feel like how you feel, and then you're like reread it and you'll be like, I would be embarrassed to react that way. Or like I don't feel that way anymore once you like read it and reflect on it. So I feel like just actually like applying that to my life and doing it rather than reacting in the moment. But I'm kind of like a hothead sometimes and get a little bit reactive, but it's fine. So let's just jump into kind of the main segment, which is um, all about perspective. So I have a quote to start us off with, words to live by. So this is from Pinterest and perspective. Life will throw so many obstacles at you, ones that will create new opportunities and others that will test your strength, but never anything you cannot handle. In the end, it's not about what these obstacles are, but instead how you respond and view them. There's no such there's so much you can do even when you feel as though your circumstances hold you back. Maybe it's about focusing less on what or who you have and more on everything you can do, the opportunities life will bring, and those that want to spend their life with you. Your perspectives can build you up or tear you down. And I think this is a really good quote to start off the episode with, and just kind of like tying up everything about perspective really simply. And it's really all about relinquishing control and viewing things and really just kind of like stepping outside of your circumstances to kind of take that bird's eye view of your life and not taking things like so seriously, not getting so caught up in the moment that your perspective is like negative. And it's really what I wanted to talk about is having like a positive outlook on life and having a positive perspective, and how it really is all about perspective. It's not really bad things happening to you, it's you choosing to view these things as bad things or whatever. And so I think this is just something that's like kind of like top of mind recently, lately for me. It's like sometimes like kind of goes back to being reactive. It's like I see this one bad thing happening and then I down spiral into like, why is this thing happening in my life? Like I can't believe this. And then it's just like really a bad spiral and I just like go down this rabbit hole of like negative outlooks on life. And it's like, well, this one thing happened. It doesn't have to be like your whole life is bad now. So really that's kind of like where I wanted to start with perspective and like why, because I just feel like recently I just let things like get to me and get in my head and then like overanalyze this thing and I like spin it out of control and then it becomes like, okay, chill out. It's really not that big of a deal. And it's about perspective and looking at your life and looking at the things that you do have rather than looking at it's all like the whole concept of the glass half full versus the glass half empty. And I feel like overall I'm a pretty positive person, or it's like I'm positive when people come to me and they need advice or they are viewing a situation a certain way and I'm viewing it a totally different way. But when it's my own life, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Like, and I'm like really self critical. And so, anyways, it really is all about perspective. So, what is perspective? It's a particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something, it's a point of view. And at its core, perspective is the lens through which we view the world. It's our unique way of seeing and interpreting the events, people, and situations in our lives. Perspective is the filter that shapes our perceptions and subsequently our reactions. So, that kind of just like sums up the whole reactions thing. So, really perspective is the way that we just like naturally see the world based on our previous experiences, personalities, life lived, whatever. We have this certain perspective and this is just like the way that we see the world. And so it's our way of seeing the world. It's unique to us. And so not everyone is going to have the same perspective on things. And this kind of ties into like expectations, which I've talked about recently on the podcast, and how I might have a certain expectation or a certain expectation for a person, or like envisioning them responding in this exact way just because that's my perspective. That's the way I would respond. That's the way that I see things going. And it's like that is my own perspective, and other people have their own unique perspectives based on things they've experienced and how they interpret different things in life. And so I think it's good to kind of keep that in mind when it comes to perspective, is like everyone does have their own unique perspective. And that's helpful to me when it comes to expectations, is seeing it that way. It's like, okay, yeah, like not everybody has the exact same life experience as me. So obviously they're not going to see everything I see eye to eye. And so I think that can be helpful when kind of eliminating expectations in your life. So perspective being our, filter that shapes our lives and our perceptions and subsequently our reactions. So that is kind of like the baseline. So here is my baseline of my perspective. And through that funnels how I react to things, how I, see my life, my perceptions, and things like that. And so I think that's why it's so important to focus on perspective, because it is that baseline, it is that filter. And so it can significantly impact our emotional well being, our relationships, and our overall quality of life. It can impact the way that we perceive challenges, setbacks, successes. And so, really, it's just so important that we really kind of like look at our perspectives on life and try to change and model them in a way that is productive and positive, so that it doesn't hold us back and negatively impact us in all of these areas. So, we don't always have control of what happens in our lives, and that's just life. Like that's how it works. But we do have control over our mindset and our perspectives. So, that's kind of why perspective is so important and why I wanted to talk about it in today's podcast episode. So, like I was saying, perspective can, it can significantly impact all of these areas of our life. And so it can be negative or positive. And so I want to have a positive impact, a positive perspective on life, so that my overall quality of life is positive and I just view life like half full, and just really having that positive positive perspective and like a joyful outlook on life. And so some ways that you can change your perspective if you do have a negative perspective is one, reframing your thoughts. So, like I was saying, kind of in my intention for the week, is I want to analyze my thoughts. I think you kind of have to start there because your thoughts are kind of always flying around in your mind like throughout the day. So it's important to, okay, like where am I starting from? Here are my thoughts, and whether that's positive or negative, and like kind of recording them when you have a certain outlook or perspective on something. And instead of like me like reacting immediately, really looking at these thoughts, if it's negative, reframing it and seeing something from a different point of view. And that kind of leads into the next way to change your perspective is viewing situations from a different perspective. So like I mentioned, my friends come to me or whatever and they have like this negative outlook on something. It's like I don't always see it that way first, but just like the natural tendency of yourself, I think sometimes is just negative, or at least for me it is. And so, for example, just like viewing those things like not so, I don't even know. But basically it's just like I don't have a negative like view of other people, so like why would I have a negative view of myself? So anyways, viewing situations from a different perspective, so really like stepping outside of your own shoes and like looking at things and saying like, okay, well, let me put myself in this position and look at the situation. Okay, it's not that bad. So that's one way to change your perspective. Another way to change your perspective is to think from a macro level. So if you're thinking from the micro level, like this one really small bad thing happened to me, like, and you let it ruin your whole day, or you're like, my life is terrible because this one thing. Obviously, like having such a narrow minded or a narrow tunnel focus on these negative micro little things happening is going to be a negative downhill spiral. And then that leads you to thinking that everything is bad. But rather than viewing things from the micro level, viewing them at the macro level, it's just like a blimp on the radar. Like it's not anything that significant. It's not going to affect your success in the future. So, like something happens at work and you're like so frustrated about it, and it's like usually you forget those things like the next day or something. And so just looking at things from the macro level, like yes, it might be a minor setback, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not setting me back that far. And so those are like three tips that I have for changing your perspective. So I feel like just recently that's kind of come up for me. It's like it'll just be like little tiny things, and then it'll be like, well, okay, well, all these bad things are happening to me. Why is this always happen? But one, it's like I don't know what the law is. I think it's like Murphy's law or something where it's like if anything that bad can happen will happen, or like it just like when it rains it pours kind of thing. So really just kind of taking a step back, really looking at, okay, yes, I see that currently this is my perspective on this certain situation, and then going through reframing your thoughts around this thing, viewing the situation from a different perspective, and kind of like talking yourself off the ledge a little bit is really beneficial and helpful. Other ways to change your perspective, if it's something, I just think it's always a good idea to like reset your environment. Like if it's shutting your laptop, putting it away, if it's going to the workout class, if it's taking a shower, going on a walk, like a reset like that, I think is huge for a perspective change as well. If you have to call a friend, if you're like, oh, well, let me like look up this podcast about said thing, situation that you're having, whatever it might be. I think it's really helpful also to get like outsider perspectives as well. Like, you don't always have to call your friends when something bad happens, but like if something's bothering you or whatever, and you're just like, I need somebody to like talk me off this ledge, like, phone a friend or whatever, because I think people will oftentimes like see things just from a totally different perspective because they have a different view of something based on their own experiences. So little things like that are helpful in changing your perspective. And ultimately, the reason we want to change our perspective and why it's so important to is because it does significantly impact our emotional well-being, our relationships. It like bleeds into all areas of life and affects the overall quality of your life. So it's really important to really focus on that perspective funnel filter and kind of go from there. So that's all I have for you guys today. This is a super short and sweet episode. I didn't have a ton of time to record today's podcast episode, so kind of like getting in and out really quick. But I'm super glad that you guys watched today's episode, listened to today's episode. You can find me on Instagram at Iralyn12. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star rating and review. All the things. I love you guys. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast episode. Let me know how you're changing your perspective. And love you guys. Bye.